you are watching us on the Heartland Flagpoles and Flags webcam right now, that is Robert Cramer, and he wants to be our congressman in the 3rd Congressional District here in the great state of Iowa. Robert, you're very welcome. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thanks. An honor to be on the big blowtorch.
There you go. Absolutely. I feel that every day, actually. I have to tell you. I mean that sincerely, too. So let me ask you the most basic question. Why?
You know, Simon, I have a short story to tell, a 2-minute story of where I came from. It starts with my folks, and they experienced the American dream and grew up very poor in southern Missouri, but had the opportunity to come to Iowa and go to college. And my dad switched to Iowa State and then hooked up with a partner and built a small bridge construction company. So then when I came along and I graduated from Iowa State in construction engineering in 1990, by that time my dad was actually ready to transition, and so my cousin and I and our team kind of took over the company and grew it to a pretty good size, $50 to $60 million a year company. And we did it by doing it the right way with our employees. Our employees own 40% of the company. They share in the profit with us, and so it's a culture where when you get everybody pointed in the same right direction with the same goals, you can really accomplish a lot. Well, then I'm finding out that it's getting a lot harder and harder to grow a business, and Obamacare kind of put me over the edge. So my theme is enough is enough. We got to do something different. And what I see is that over the past several years, it's just been so difficult to see all the dysfunction in Washington. So I finally decided I got to do something about it. Can't sit on the sidelines anymore. So I decided to run for Congress.
Well, talking of dysfunction in Washington, the leadership in the House, the U.S. House, which you seek to join, seems to have completely lost its caucus. Only 28 Republicans, including the leadership, voted for this debt ceiling increase. Is it time John Boehner went?
Well, I don't know John Boehner, and I need to get to know him to see, but he'd have to convince me that he's going to do something very much different than what he's doing now, because it is a travesty to watch how in the last couple of years the Republicans, even though they control the House, just haven't put forward a plan and approved a long-term plan to get us out of this fix. So it starts at budget time, would be the time to start with a better plan. But then when it comes to this debt ceiling, his caucus told him, hey, they sent a very clear message that you're not leading us.
But he didn't care, right? All he cared about was he had the votes to pass it. He had 190 odd Democrats, 28 Republicans. He got it passed. He went home.
Yeah, we've got to do something different than that.
But you see, I mean, listen, this isn't about my powers of prediction. But I said on this show, first of all, to one of your competitors in the 3rd Congressional District race, Monty Shaw, and then to a Republican Senate candidate, Mark Jacobs, I gave the exact scenario that took place, okay? Now, that's not because I'm particularly brilliant. It's because we've seen it 6, 7, 8 times before, and it was extremely obvious that they didn't want a debt ceiling fight in an election year. He was going to cave completely. He wasn't going to get a penny from the president or the Democrats, and he was going to pass this clean bill. That's what I predicted. That's exactly what happened. It's not because I'm in any way brilliant, because I'm not. It's just that, I open my eyes, I've seen it. And I've got to go back to the question I asked you before. You may not know him, but you clearly know him by his actions. Is it not time the Republican leadership in the U.S. House said goodbye and went home? They don't represent anyone, not even their own caucus.
Yeah, if this is indicative of what they're going to do in the future, then we've got to make a change.
All right, straight answer. That's what we look for on this show. Thank you very much for that. We're in the middle of a conversation with Robert Cramer. He seeks to be our congressman for the 3rd District. He's got a primary to get through first. Now, the two things we've talked about are both economics, really. We've talked about the economy. We've talked about Obamacare, which is part of the economy, unfortunately now, a 6th, in actual fact, of the economy of the United States. Some people might be quite surprised that you've gone there first. A lot of people with your family leader connections would have expected you to come out and swinging on social issues.
Well, what I bring to the table is, in fact, I've been using the example of that commercial from Ford, that's what's better to have nuts or bolts or to have nuts and bolts? And I think and is better. Well, in the Republican politics, it seems like we're always given the choice of the guy from the business community or the guy who will fight for our values. Maybe the guy from the business community or the guy who will be fiscally conservative and really go, cut taxes and cut spending. Well, I say and is better. So I've been trying to explain to people that I'm the only one in the race that really does have that business background, and even though there's some other good guys out there, I'm the one that has the practical experience to bring business solutions to Washington and try to change this thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if you were to get there, all right, I suspect that the Republicans will retain a majority. Quite frankly, I don't believe they deserve to. I'm making that very clear, but I think they will retain a majority. Boehner will be the Speaker in all probability, unless he quits. I don't see that happening either, and he doesn't know who the heck you are. What are you going to get done in 2 years?
Yeah, we've got to come up with a plan.
No, you specifically.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who you are. You're no one to him. It's like being back in high school, and I'm told it's literally like being back in high school. You're the freshman. Mm-hmm. You're the kid. Nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares what you have to say until you've maybe been re-elected a couple of times.
That might be true. What I'm going to focus on is kind of like what you talk show radio hosts do. I know it's kind of fun sometimes to kind of beat up on candidates, but when you guys are at your best, it's when you're changing hearts and minds. And so that's what I want to do. Is I want to be a guy who's going to start, bringing up the good common sense solutions and start building a coalition of people there in Washington who will, respond to some common sense and have a long-term plan that will, balance the budget, start spending down the debt, and really get this economy rolling.
Well, let's ask you a few specifics. If you'd have been there, would you have voted for that budget, that $1.1 trillion that's going to last us about 9 months?
It's very interesting. If you go back over this past several years, remember back in high school how when we learned in civics class that the House was supposed to pass a budget, then the Senate could either pass that or pass their own, then they'd have a conference committee and people would get together and work out those differences. There would be debate on the floor. We could actually see it on C-SPAN now, if there was actually any debate. But instead, it's been these backroom deals, and for 5 years, the Senate never even passed a budget.
Yep.
So that put the Republicans really in a bad position because they kept doing these continuing resolutions.
Well, never mind the Senate. The president didn't present one for 4 of his 5 years, which was breaking the law.
Yeah. So then what's interesting is this last shutdown that was blamed on the Republicans. Actually, at the end of that, here we have the first time that the Senate and House actually did get together and pass a budget. Mm-hmm. So there's one positive step of them at least starting to do their job. However, I've got to dig into the details of those budgets. From the little bit that I know, it'd be still hard to stomach unless it had a long-term plan of getting us to a balanced budget. Okay,
so just on the raw numbers, you're not prepared to make a decision? You would want to see the detail, which is something you wouldn't have been able to do, even if you'd have been there. If you'd have been there, you wouldn't have been able to do that. You know that, right?
That's really frustrating, is that, I cannot see passing anything that I haven't been able to read.
Well, it came out on a Monday night. It was the size of a telephone book, 1,600 pages, and they voted on it on the Wednesday afternoon. You would not have been able to have any clue what was in it.
Yeah, that's unacceptable, and I couldn't vote for that if I can't
All right,
read it.
So are you telling us you will never vote for a bill you have not read, personally?
No, I would say that I would not vote for a bill that my team has not had a chance to read and dissect and come together and conclude what the best way to do it is.
Okay, so you don't feel it's necessary for you to read it?
If it's, I'm going to have to trust my staff, and so I'm going to have a good staff. No, I don't think I would have to necessarily read every word, but I want to know what's in every word.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's talk about term limits briefly, shall we? And then we'll get back to this debt ceiling thing. But let's talk about term limits. Not everybody, but certainly some of the people you're up against are term limiting themselves. Of course, this is supposed to be a citizen legislature, right? It's 2 years because our founders, in their wisdom, didn't think they could get anybody to serve for more than 2 years because they'd all want to go home to their farms, etc. And now, of course, we have career politicians. So let's ask you that direct question. First of all, are you going to term limit yourself?
And let's ask the first question, and that is, would I support a term limit amendment? And
well, that wasn't the question I asked, but that will come up. I asked if you would term limit yourself.
So I would support. I would definitely support a term limits amendment where everybody has to live under the same rules.
As
when it comes to term limiting myself, I have no desire to be there for 20 years and just watch the decay. I want to be a part of the solution. So if I'm there for 8 or 10 years and I'm not making any progress, I'll be coming home anyways. But I don't want to make any term limit guarantee right now today. except unless it applies to everybody in the House, because I don't want to handicap Iowa if after 8 or 10 years I'm able to move my way up into leadership and really help Iowa. Then I think I need to stay there a little bit longer and see what I can do. But if I'm just spinning my wheels, then I need to come home and give someone else a chance.
Okay. That's kind of like the people that say, I have no current plans to run for the presidency. Okay, we're in the middle of a conversation with Robert Cramer. He is running on the GOP side of the ticket to represent us in the 3rd Congressional District. You can ask him some questions if you like at 284-1040, 800-469-4295. Right now, though, we're going to swing on over to Jim Brown and see what's going on.
If you want.
Involved at iHeartRadio.com/showyourstripes. Powered by Monster.com and Military.com. Hire smart, hire vets.
We're talking to Robert Cramer. He wants to be our congressman in the 3rd Congressional District. We're getting some straight answers, which is nice from somebody who would be a politician. Do you think of yourself as a politician?
Well, I haven't been a politician before.
Well, you haven't been elected. There are plenty of politicians that haven't been elected. We could talk about Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Vanderplatz is unquestionably a politician, never elected.
Yeah, so I haven't been running kind of races like this. The closest thing was school board.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, I self-identify myself as a businessman and not a politician.
Okay. We've talked about the budget. We've talked about the fact that you're not promising to read bills you vote for, but you are promising that your staff will have read them, which is good. So you could not have voted for the budget because they wouldn't have read it.
Right, that's right.
And even if they'd have read it, they certainly wouldn't have had time to brief you on a phone book-sized bill.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the debt ceiling. It went through, clean vote, a whole bunch of Republicans switched sides. There was a nice little show vote in the Senate whereby they voted, a whole bunch of Republicans, 12 of them to be exact, voted for cloture, and then all promptly voted against raising the debt ceiling so they could go back to their states and say, hey, I voted against it. They really think we're that stupid. Unfortunately, a lot of the voters in this country are that stupid. You'll never take part in a show vote, will you?
No, we've got to change our procedure, and we're just tired of the shell game that the politicians keep playing in the ruling class in both parties. So I want to go and bring the common sense solutions and be transparent with the public and do the right thing.
So would you have joined the 28 Republicans who voted to raise the debt ceiling? And of course they didn't put a number on it. They've just it's now open-ended. They've just put a date on it so they can spend what they like until March of next year. Would you have voted with the 28, or would you have voted with the vast majority of Republicans who said nope?
Yeah, I would have voted with the vast majority who would say no in this situation. That's just unacceptable. The problem starts at the budget time, and that's the better time to do the negotiating, and that's the way to do business. It's not good to have to deal with this raising the debt ceiling. But boy, with these Democrats in the Senate and in the White House, I just don't know how we do get them to stop spending unless we cut off the credit card sometimes.
Well, yeah, it is unquestionably a difficult problem because the Democrats have learned how to play this game way better than the Republicans. The Democrats say no, we're not going to do anything, and figure out how to blame the Republicans for it, and then they close war memorials, and that kind of backfired on them a little bit. But if you look at the polling, the vast majority of people blame Republicans even for that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy when the last couple of votes that the Republican House did was to give Obama all the spending he wanted, and the only two things were to delay the mandate on Obamacare and to make Obamacare rules for the Congress be the same as what it is for everybody else. And still, he said, I'm not going to negotiate. He let it shut down, and then somehow Republicans get blamed for that.
Yep, as I said, the Democrats know how to play the game way better than Republicans do. Okay, look, you come from family leader. You're clearly going to be discussing social issues. So which is if you could only have one, which would it be?
I think that one of our first rights is the right to life. So we have to. So I'm 100% pro-life, and the beauty of having served.
Let's just clear that up. 100% pro-life. Incest.
So I'm 100% pro-life from conception till natural death.
Okay, so if a child is raped by her dad and there is a baby, that baby has to be born. We have to force the child to give birth.
force the child to give birth, the young person. Those are horrible circumstances.
Well, they are horrible circumstances, but that's why I'm asking you the question. I mean, that really is a very simplistic yes/no answer. I just want to be clear. I'm very pro-life myself. I would not do that, by the way, but I'm extremely pro-life. But you, based on what you just said, would force the child to give birth.
I'm 100% pro-life.
No. You can't. You come on, Robert. I told you in advance. You can't make circles in here. Straight question, straight answer.
Well, I'm not forcing anybody, to.
Well, you are.
If you make birth. What I'm saying is that life is precious and yes, needs to be saved.
Okay.
And
so yes. So you've got if there is a young lady who is impregnated by her dad in an incestuous rape, she is going to have to deliver that child. If you got your way and changed the law that life began at conception, all circumstances.
Yeah, and where this comes from is I've met some people who are those exceptions, and I can't look them in the eye and say, hey, even though you're a result of rape, you don't deserve to live. So I have to stay 100%.
Told you up front, Robert, there's no right answer on this show. There's your answer. We ask for it straight. I might challenge your position, but that's all what we do in here. There's no right answer. Your position is your position. We just want you to stick by it. So the simple answer is yes. A young woman who is impregnated by her father would have to give birth if you were able to change the law to life began at conception for all.
So yes, that life needs to be protected. I wouldn't be there forcing the
well, if abortion is illegal, then you would be.
But yes, the law should be to protect every life.
Right. But if abortion is illegal in all circumstances, then you would be. You may not be physically in the room, but you would be forcing that child to give birth.
The law should be to protect each life.
All right. Well, you don't want to say the words. It's really interesting to me that it's your position. You're passionate about your position, but you don't want to say the words. I find that fascinating.
I find it just strange the phrase that you put it into, saying that I would force this this birth. But my job would be to protect every life.
All right. Well, we gave you one social issue. We said you could have. That was the one you went with. If you could get one, you would go for that one. That's absolutely great. Robert Cramer, we will have you back. We're out of time. Time flies in the studio. I think I told you that as well. We thank you for spending time with us today, and we'd love to have you back as this campaign continues.
Yeah, people can learn more about me at CramerForCongress.com, and I appreciate the time on here.
That's fine. CramerForCongress.com. There's the website. All right.